Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. Well, we've been talking about the music of Kate Bush, and we've made it to the year 1982. This is her fourth album. This is The Dreaming. Oh, yes. This is one of my favorite albums by Kate Bush, and I know that could be a controversial thing. I think, it's a controversial album amongst Kate Bush fans because it is bizarre. It is an absolutely bizarre record. Um, it's very, very experimental. It's very, very off the wall. There's a certain sense of disjointedness to it, but that's what I like about it. That's what appeals to me. Um, Obviously, the big thing about this album is this is the first time that Kate actually produced an album by herself. Um, she had co-produced the previous album, Never Forever, with John Kelly. And I think that was certainly an educational experience. It was her first opportunity to kind of like get her hands on the mixing boards and actually start producing. And she was confident and ready enough to do the whole thing by herself with this. And the thing that I love experimental music. I love it, especially when it's a really vital artist. When a very vital and talented artist makes an album and they're just having fun. They're just pushing their art to the limits. They're pushing the boundaries of what they had been capable of. I think those are the best records, and I think this is a brilliant example of it. Um, I think this album kind of belongs to a group of experimental albums that had come out in the late '70s, early '80s. A little aside here, but yeah, there's a great collection of these really experimental, cool, arty, art rock kind of albums that had come out in the late '70s, early '80s. And David Bowie's Berlin trilogy, so like Low, Heroes, and Lodger. That's a great example. Peter Hamill kind of had a trilogy with Future Now, PH7, Black Box, Peter Gabriel's self-titled albums were all kind of a part of that. And this album fits very comfortably with all that. Experimental, new age, '80s new age, um, you know, boundary cutting music. And I think it fits really well with those. Speaking of Peter Gabriel, before this album was recorded, Kate had sung backup on Peter Gabriel's third album, the Melting Face album, and she sings on Games Without Frontiers and No Self Control. And obviously, what's notable about Gabriel's third album is, the way that he was creating those songs is he was creating rhythm tracks. So he'd start out with a drum pattern, get this repetitive hypnotic rhythm going, and then he'd put the next little bit, then the next little bit, and he'd build the song up from the rhythm tracks. And I think Kate was really inspired by that, and she followed suit with this. You can tell a lot of the songs on here were designed that way. She also spent a lot of time working with the Fairlight synthesizer. It was on the previous album. And the Fairlight synthesizer, it's very antiquated by these days, but back in the early '80s, it was kind of like an early sampling device. So there's a lot of, kind of quirky, unusual sounds that pop up on this, which I think are great. Um, but yeah, like I said, I mean, it is just absolutely off the wall. And I love it. I really like the disjointedness to it. I love the fact that she really did not have any concern for any sort of commerciality. She was just out there making the kind of music she wanted to make, and I think it's probably a great process of self-discovery for her too. She was discovering for herself what her own limitations were by breaking what she had done before, and I think that's great. This album is also extremely important because with all this experimentation and all this these kind of new fresh ideas. Um, she was using a lot of synthesizers. Just the general experimentation of this album leads way to the next album, which is Hounds of Love, which is you can't. There's no words for it. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece of art, Hounds of Love. But so is this one. It's one of those things. Whereas with the Dreaming, I think I know that Hounds of Love is like the better album, but I listen to the Dreaming so much more. I think there's a personal favorite thing. My taste is suited to this kind of crazy, off the wall, wild music. Yeah, so that's good. Let's talk about the tracks. Side one opens with "Sat in Your Lap." I love this song. It's again, those vocals are phenomenal. Um, in addition to all the other experimentation on this record, she was really pushing her voice to the max, and there's some absolutely phenomenal vocal performances on this album. And the first one is a good example. "Sat in Your Lap." Just the way she sings that chorus, some say that knowledge is. She's singing full voice. She's the full. She's doing the full voice thing, and it almost sounds sharp, but it really isn't. It's just how much. It's the way that she's projecting the notes, which is it's totally unique, and there's not many singers that sing like that. It sounds great to my ears. Again, when I first discovered Kate, it took a bit of adjusting, but it's like, it's phenomenal stuff. It's got a really bouncy rhythm. We also hear the gated reverb drum sound. Again, the Peter Gabriel influences there. Again, Gabriel's third album had Intruder on it with the big gated reverb drums, and Genesis was doing that too. So she was following suit with that. And that drum intro, that boom, 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 those drums just sound huge. And I love the piano bit too. Really, really cool, bouncy rhythm. And the end is really great too with that synthesizer that kind of bounces over top. I love the lyrics. I think the lyrics are about, it's kind of like them heavy people. It's one of those talking about continuing your education and absorbing as much knowledge as you possibly can. I think that's what the song's about. But I love those lyrics. I love that part. I'm climbing up the ladder. That just gets me ready for life. Especially if when I got into this album, that was just it was such a that line was inspirational to me. Climbing up the ladder. Right? I hung on to that line for a bit. Great song. I love "Sat in Your Lap." That moves on to "There Goes a Tenor." Back to her kind of really theatrical kind of stuff. Maybe it's kind of like a Coffee Home Ground from Lionheart. I like "There Goes a Tenor" a lot more. Lyrically, it's all about a stakeout. Espionage, intrigue. That whole kind of a thing. She sings in a Cockney accent too, which I think is really fun, and it adds to that theatrical quality of it. Another word that I'd use to describe is cinematic. It almost feels, a lot of her music here, and a lot of indeed on her other albums, it feels like the different parts of the song are like different parts of a movie. They're different scenes of a movie, right? And you really get that with "There Goes the Tenor" because the lyrics are so descriptive. It's great. I really love the atmospheric sections that come in the middle. The "We're waiting." That whole section is really, really cool. I love that. I love those droning synths. There's a male voice that pops up at one point too. I have no idea what he says, but it's just, again, it's the tonality of it. I love the tone of that voice that pops up. I think it's really cool. "There Goes a Tenor" is another really great song. Track 3 of side 1 is "Pull Out the Pin." Could be a contender for one of the best on the album. I think it's an absolutely brilliant song, and again, it really goes to show what a phenomenal songwriter she was. It's still quite experimental. Musically, it's quite experimental. Its essence is kind of the Kate Bush piano kind of a song, but there's the guitar that comes up, and there's some other weird kind of sounds that bounce up. But the guitar is very Fripp-esque. It sounds very Frippian. It sounds like Robert Fripp. It isn't, but they're using the scales that Fripp would use. And it creates this really, again, this disjointed, chaotic kind of claustrophobic sound, even though the song is, for the most part, fairly mellow. But it suits the lyrics really well, and that's what I'm saying. It's a testament to how great a songwriter she is. And the lyrics are brilliant. Again, it's an anti-war song. And it's about being on the battlefield. I think I might be wrong in thinking it's about Vietnam. I hear the helicopter. There's a big section of the song where you hear the helicopter fly over, so that makes me think of Vietnam. Thanks to Forrest Gump. Where have I lost my place? The lyrics. I think it's about the Vietnam War, and it tells the story of Vietnamese soldier, I'm presuming, who comes in contact with the enemy Americans, and they're close enough to see the life in their enemy's eyes, and it deals with the whole thing of the people, they don't really want to be out here killing, and there's a great line in the song, sees no reason for the fighting, and again the emotion that she drills into that vocal performance, it just sends it all home so nicely. But that whole thing of the combatants in the campaign don't necessarily have the desire to knock out the other people, but they know that if they know that if they don't kill the opposing force, then they're going to be killed themselves. And that's the whole chorus. Just one thing in it, me or him, and I love life, so I pull out the pin. And it's a deep lyric. It's a very good war song. It's Kate Bush's war songs are so much better than your typical protest songs because again, it's the emotional intelligence of it, and she'll write a song told from the perspective of a character who's facing something directly to do with war, and I think that there's and again with the emotive quality of her voice and her songwriting is there's so much more power to an anti-war song that has that emotional kick rather than just saying let's impeach the president or whatever it was. I was thinking of Neil Young for some reason there. Yeah. I think I've rambled on too much about that, so we'll go to the next one. The next track 4, is Suspended in Gaffa. Another song that I absolutely love. I love all the songs on this album. I love this album. I really love Suspended in Gaffa, actually. One of those songs of hers, dealing with innocence and the innocence of youth, and it's so lovely. And again, we get her vocal experiments too. We get that really harsh, full vocal singing this lovely melody over this waltz. And her voice is, there's the really low voice that comes in for certain bits and the shrieking voice, and this is brilliant. I love what she can do with her voice, and she stretched it probably as far, she stretched it the most on this album, arguably. And yeah, it's just I love that waltz feel to it. And again, she's such a wonderful lyricist. I love those lyrics, and they really conjure up that innocence of youth and the fears and anxieties that come along with being a young person. But it's not in a dark way. It's not a dark song at all. It's actually quite infused with joy. It's dealing with complex feelings and whatnot, but it's you can listen to it, and as long as you get used to the crazy vocals, it's a beautiful melody. It's lovely. Suspended in Gaffa, great song. Let me get to track 5. Track 5 is side 1, Leave It Open. Another one of my favorite songs. This is a theme of this album, is all the songs are my favorite. I really like Suspended in Gaffa, or sorry, I love that one too. I really love Leave It Open though. You can really see that Peter Gabriel technique of starting with the rhythm track and building everything up from there. There's some wild processing on her voice. I don't like the processing on her voice so much on this song. I would have preferred to just hear the sound of her voice, but you can't have everything. It's got a great build up to it as well, and I'm not sure if it's a real orchestra or if it's one of the synthesizers that's creating that string sound. But when the string part comes in, it is a really dramatic part. And of course, the drums get big. We get the big gated reverb drums near the end, and that riff comes in and it carries the song out, and it's just wild. Again, talking about her vocal performance, it is just off the cuff crazy. Even at the very end of the song, I think the line she's singing is "We let the weirdness in." We let the weirdness in. I think that's what she's saying anyway. And obviously very appropriate. And then the song ends and the vocal part keeps going and the vocal part fades out even though the song finished. Well, again, just weird experiments and the art of why not, I think. So yeah, we flip the album over after that, and we get the title track, "The Dreaming." This was the song that I heard when I was really, this is the first Kate Bush song that I heard that I went, must hear more of her. And it is very, very good. Again, there's the rhythm track technique. There's the rhythm track, and then there's the next bit, and the song builds up. Da 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 da. But it's really, really cool. The song is about the plight of indigenous Australians, native Australians, and again, a difficult topic to talk about, but it's great. She was the master at that. She would force certain social issues on the ears of her listeners, just by writing brilliant songs about it. I think the music is just brilliant. There's a lot of weird kind of electronic-y effects that pop up, but it's all driven by this sort of tribal drum march, and we get that world music thing, which was really really popular in the early '80s. It's cool that she was on board for that as well. The Dreaming it might be my actual favorite song on the record. She sings in an Australian accent as well, which is really cool. Just so many great vocal performances. I love that. Pull up a bush. It's so cool. And of course the didgeridoo. There's not nearly enough songs in the world today that feature the didgeridoo, but thankfully, a song being about Africans, or I'm sorry, a song being about Australians, certainly could use a didgeridoo. So yeah, that's quite interesting. I really love The Dreaming. It's a great song. And then it goes right into the next track, which is Night of the Swallow, and this is the first time we really hear Kate Bush doing the Celtic thing and executing it beautifully. She does a very very good job of it. It's a really weird song because it's half piano ballad. But then when the chorus comes in, we get this, this Celtic jig that comes up, and the violin comes in, and it's just wonderful. I really, really like those melodies. I really, really like the song. It does feel like it could be two pieces, but again, that's that kind of proggy thing, right? There's a lot of tonal changes, a lot of mood changes that pop up. And yeah, but fantastic track. Again, another wonderful vocal performance. I love the way the vocals just kind of flutter through that chorus so nicely. So yeah, that's a really good one. And like I said, it's important in that it sets up a lot of the stuff that she would do later on. Next song, track 3 of side 2, is All the Love. This is the love song on the album, and it's not the lovey-dovey love song. This is a dark one. Again, I've mentioned before, I think there is, I might be totally wrong, but I think there is a Peter Hamill influence to Kate Bush's music, and I hear it in songs like All the Love, where it is quite, even the piano, the piano part sounds a little, almost Hamelian. I might be totally way off base, but I hear that. It's a thread that pops through my ears. And it's that again. There's some haunting bits. There's atmospheric parts in the middle. The I needed you. Oh, that's it makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Really, really good stuff. There's a bit of Python-esque humor that pops into the song too, actually. 'Cause we get this song, which again is quite dark and is quite melancholy and regretful. The end of a relationship and that. We get this big song, and then right at the very end, right when there's this kind of like moment of tension and silence, we get the phone call. Take care. Which is that to me sounds like it's like a thing of Monty Python. It's Python-esque humor. To have all this dark atmosphere, and then take care. Bye then. See you later. All these goodbyes, which some of them sound quite corny, but again, it's almost like a comic relief because the song is quite moody, but brilliant. All the songs on this album are brilliant. We move on, getting closer to the end of the album, and we get to the track Houdini. And if you're wondering what the album cover is all about, this album cover is illustrating Houdini. This fellow here that she's kissing is supposed to be Houdini, and she's got a key in her mouth, you see, and that was one of the classic tricks that Houdini would pull. He'd give his lady would give him a kiss of good luck, and she would hide the key to whatever he was escaping of. I'm not sure specifically what the trick she's talking about, but yeah, the good luck kiss is when his wife/assistant would pass the key on to him, and Houdini, the song Houdini, is about that exchange, and it's about performing that trick again from his wife's, or his stage assistant's perspective. Wife, or probably the same person, I would have thought. I would think wife. But musically, Houdini is arguably one of the most bizarre tracks on the album. It is just all over the place, and it's predominantly orchestral. It feels like a piece of chamber music, and there's a lot of start-stop kind of weird craziness. There's one section of it that is utterly gorgeous. We get that classic, very emotive Kate Bush melody that comes through. But then the thing to write home about with Houdini is the wild yelling she does. With your spit still on my lips. That's just a wild part. It's showing her willingness to push her vocal capabilities to the max. And I really like the song. I like how off the wall it is, and like I said, it's got some really, really pretty parts to it as well. Not the best on the album, but it's certainly notable. It's one that you remember when you're finished listening, that's for sure. And then the album wraps up with the 10th track 5 of side 2, and that is, oh goodness, Get Out of My House. Trust me, I know the song. I forgot the title there for a minute, but it is one of my favorite. Is it one of my favorite Kate Bush songs? I'm not sure. One of my favorites on the album, though, and like I said, they're all my favorites. But Get Out of My House is just creepy, and it's very anthemic too. It has that kind of early '80s experimental art rock sound, if there was such a thing. That was another pretentious thing that I've said on my channel. It has that kind of early '80s art rock kind of a sound to it. It is very anthemic, but like I said, it's creepy. I think it was inspired by The Shining, domestic violence and other topics and things that go along with that. But her vocal performance is utterly terrifying. That shriek of "Get out of my house." That kind of becomes one of the rhythmic stanzas towards the end of the track, and it's just, oh my goodness. There's so many vocal moments on here that are just, phenomenal. That whole song is, if you want to hear Kate Bush, the vocalist, and hear how talented she really is, check out Get Out of My House and listen to that vocal performance, because it is absolutely, wild. And there's that emotional intelligence there that, it sets up that scene so well. It sets up that whole, that Shining theme, if indeed that's what it is about. That gets really, really bizarre at the end. Male vocalist comes in, and he's obviously playing the role of the aggressor. And there's some kind of reference to some kind of symbology where Kate says, "I'll change into the mule," and then we get the hee-haw, which is just, no matter how many times you hear it, it always catches you off guard. It just, right off the bat. And she does the first donkey sound, and then the male vocalist does it after that. It's very big and very booming. But the first one that she does is just great. I mean, she's such a wild singer. That's great stuff. So this is a very bizarre end to the album. I think, I'm sure a lot of people that had bought this when it came out and they were expecting another Kick Inside or Lionheart or Never Forever were probably pretty dumbfounded, because it is a way out there experimental record, but I think it's absolutely essential. And for my taste personally, it could be my favorite Kate Bush album. But there was still lots of really, really good stuff to come. Definitely the best thing she'd done up to this point. But like I said, lots of really good stuff to come, including Hounds of Love. That's the really famous one. So, I think I've talked enough about The Dreaming. I feel there was something else I wanted to say about it, but I can't seem to think of it right now. I'll think about it as soon as I stop recording, and then I'll regret not saying it. But, oh well, for the time being I forget, so we're going to cut the video off. So you've been listening to me talk about The Dreaming by Kate Bush. I hope you enjoyed it. Send me a like, send me a subscribe, throw me a comment, and stay tuned next time where I'll be talking about Hounds of Love, also by Kate Bush. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much.